What's up everyone, Brandon here from Gearist. Today we're going to be taking a look at one of those pieces of gear that you really can't get away without having these days when you're out on an adventure, and that is the Nüüd from Lifeproof for the iPhone 6 and 6S, but also available for Android products. Now before we get into this review, there are a couple things that I'd like to put out there for you guys. The first thing that I'll mention is that the screen of my phone, this iPhone 6S right here, has a crack on it, right down here at the bottom. That is no fault of this case right here. That happened prior to having this case on my phone when I was trying to go without, which again is one of the reasons you gotta have this thing right here. The second thing that I'd like to bring up with this phone is that in the past when we've reviewed phone products, whether it's an iPhone case that had a really cool cord to it that held it, so if you dropped the phone it wouldn't be able to go anywhere, something like that. Phones are updated so frequently these days that in the past with that particular product, that cord thing that I was telling you about, somebody was actually pretty critical of us for reviewing a product that was outdated. Let me just say this right up front. When you see this, the iPhone 7 or 8 or whatever may already be out. But what we're going to be talking about here is the technology that this case uses, the quality with which this case is built, and how it performs relative to this phone. Could it change in other models? Sure. And when those things come up, we will do our best to make sure that we have the latest products to be able to show you guys. Apple doesn't exactly send us phones, so if you guys want to buy us the latest thing, I am more than happy to take that for you guys and try it out. However, until then, just know that if you're watching something and the phone itself is outdated, it doesn't necessarily mean that the technology is. With all that said, let's get into the actual meat of this review. Now, all of us, probably most of us anyway, have a smartphone, and if you do, wonderful, you're in the right place. If you don't, there's probably a phone review somewhere else for like your Motorola Razr or something, no offense. And with little $650 plus computers sitting in our pockets every day, no matter what we're doing, it really becomes necessary to protect those things, to make sure that they are gonna be safe, no matter what you're doing, whether your adventure is calling for a water thing or a skiing thing or a running thing, what have you, you really wanna make sure that you're protecting this investment that sits in your pocket. And like I said, today we're going to be taking a look at the Nüüd from Lifeproof, and I will tell you why it's called the Nüüd in just a couple minutes. Before we get into how it's made, let's talk about what it's made of. Now the first thing is that the body, this part here, the case on the back and on the sides right here, this is made from a textured polycarbonate. It's a little smoother on the back, but then on the front and the sides it's textured so you can get that good grip on it. On the top here and on the bottom we've got a synthetic rubber and silicone area, which is again going to give a little bit more grip. This case that I'm testing is the kind of black version, and as you can see it is transparent on the back there, so you can see the Apple logo and all that kind of stuff, and while it is transparent it does give a little bit of tint to this area. So if you've got like the rose gold phone and you really like that rose gold shining through, there are other color options in this case that are going to let that happen, but in this one it might knock down that color a little bit. To show you some of the construction, we have to take the case apart, which we'll talk about and show you how to do that in just a minute. Now the first thing is that right over here up on the ear area and the front facing camera, you've got a membrane which does a nice job of, and we'll talk about this in more in the performance, but it does a nice job of protecting that, keeping it waterproof and everything like that. Down here on the home button, you've actually got a flexible, it's gonna be hard to show you, a flexible membrane. Believe it or not, this feels like something somewhere between, and pardon any details that may make you uncomfortable, somewhere between plastic wrap and a condom. Now, what's great about that is that it still allows you to use your Apple Touch ID or Touch ID right here. You can just stick your thumb on there and it reads straight through the membrane, no problem to unlock the phone. On the back facing camera and flash, we've got another couple membranes right there, little lenses that keep everything protected, nice and clear. They can easily wipe off and such like that. So once you've got the phone in there, what you've got down, as for ports on the bottom, and I've put this back together without the phone being inside of it, as for ports on the bottom, we've got this right here, this flip down flap, that is where your lightning port is covered so that you can charge it right in there. And then you've got over here on the side where the headphone port is a little screw-in thing here, screw-in plug that fills that hole, and it's actually got a gasket around it, so when you screw it in, you're also tightening it down. As for the buttons that appear on the right and left sides of the case, case, you've got over here your power button. These are all just silicone and rubber covered button areas. And the one thing that is a little bit interesting about this is the mute button right here, which is a toggle on the iPhone. So in this case, it actually kind of is reversed because it's a switch that goes like this, so it's controlling the button inside. So if you're used to the mute being one way, it's going to be the other way in this. Not a big deal, just look at your screen and make sure you know what you're doing. But what about protecting the screen, you may be asking yourself right now. And here is where this is very interesting. This is where the Lifeproof Nüüd gets its name. Here's the front part of the cover, here's the back part right here. Here's the front part of the cover, and here is obviously the screen. Check this out. That's right, there is no screen protector on this. But why not? How does this work? Well, as you can see, probably not right back here, there is a very thin silicone bead right there around the edge. What this silicone bead does is it creates a seal against your existing screen, against that Gorilla Glass that Apple so highly touts. So then once you've got it like this, ideally, if the seal is correct, you've got a seal inside there, and it doesn't matter because none of the ports are open on the front side of the screen. In this case, because I have a little bit of a crack down here, it's a little bit different. I was still able to test out the water tightness of this and still can report on that for you guys. Now the phone does come with an optional screen scratch protector, which does two things. Number one, it creates an even tighter seal up against this by just like, you know, a tenth of a millimeter or something like that, as well as creating a scratch protection area. It should be okay with not compromising the screen, and I would imagine also that if you're using an additional screen protector, something like one of those glass things you're supposed to be able to hammer on, that it would probably also be okay on here. Now that we talked about how the Lifeproof Nüüd is built, let's talk about how it performed and how the phone inside it performed. First, the power and volume buttons perform exactly the same as they normally would. The only possible difference being that they sit out a little bit farther because after all, it has a case. It has to sit out larger than the profile of the phone itself, but it's not a huge, overly bulky phone, as you can see there, phone case rather. Still very, very compact. As I mentioned earlier, that home button is one of the things that I was most curious to see how it would work, and if you look here, it's locked. I put my thumb on it, opens up right away, no problem. I was really very surprised by that, to be very honest. I thought it was going to take some doing, and no, it honestly operates the exact same way. The trick is, just like if you're using your phone without a case on it and you've got like a sweaty hand or you've been washing dishes or something like that and your thumb is a little bit compromised, it's going to function the exact same way. It's really quite astounding. That mute button, which I have read when some people have pointed out that they didn't like the fact that this was in reverse, it doesn't bother me. Here the ringer's on, here the ringer's off. On, off. You just, I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer. I don't really understand why it bugs people so much, but there you go. Didn't bother me. It's just a flip of a switch, not any big deal. My favorite thing about this is the fact that this screen is open. Now, why is that? Because I've seen so many cases where you've got a covered screen, and in some cases, to be honest, some of the earlier Lifeproof models, even those screens, they get a little dinged. Maybe not dinged, but just kind of a little worn, and what begins to happen is there's a separation. You feel this weird interaction with the screen where the protection goes down and then it's got to touch the screen. It just doesn't feel right. I love the clarity of this because it doesn't compromise it at all. Now let's move on to the audio performance of this guy, which is a big thing for people. First, how does it sound when you're just speaking into it? Non-speaker mode, regular, up to the ear. Now for the iPhone user, for me on this end listening to somebody, I notice absolutely no reduction in clarity or quality of the sound. For the person on the other end, and I was the person on the other end in trying this out, there is like the most minuscule reduction in clarity, but to be honest, I would not have noticed this if I weren't actually looking for it. When you're using the speaker, this is a little bit different. Now, whether it's for a phone call or for a video or for music, what have you, if you're listening to that speaker, like you're listening to this like it's a radio or something or a podcast or what have you, there is a little bit of distortion as well as volume reducing. Before we do anything else, let's take the case off so we can listen to it without any distortion. And to do that, all you do is there's a little slot right here. You take a quarter, penny, whatever, slide it in there, pry that guy open, and then make sure that this bottom flap is undone, and then you just simply pull it off. In order to really get the sense of this, I feel like you need a song that bumps a little bit, that's got a little bit of volume to it, so we're going to listen to Sabotage by the Beastie Boys. so you can hear a little bit of that distortion coming through in the speaker. Now, it's a little bit of vibrating, and what I think that it is the membrane that's down here, right over here where the speaker is for the actual sound to go in. That's part of what you're hearing. Now, from what I've read, this is certainly an improvement over earlier Lifeproof models in terms of the muffling. There isn't quite as much muffling, but there is that sound distortion. And to be honest, it's got to be one of those, I can't even imagine being the engineer that's got to figure this out, but that's a very tricky thing to work with. So when I listen to music personally, I'm probably listening on headphones of some sort or through Bluetooth. So I'm not really using the speaker very much for that. When I listen to videos, a little bit different story. There again is a little bit of distortion, but you have to accept it for what it is, or just take the 2 seconds that it takes to take the phone out. But just be aware that if you use your speaker a lot, there is that distortion. And again, if that's a bridge too far to cross for you, it's a toss-up between having a phone that's got good protection or a phone that's got good speaker sound. So it's really your call. What is more important to you? Now, the lightning and power ports are where there could potentially be a little bit of angst with this guy. Now, the first thing, let's talk about that power port. Now, the first thing I'm going to show you with this is we're going to take a regular old Apple iPhone lightning charger cord here, and you'll see that's the plug size, that's the plug shape. If you're not familiar with it, just go to an Apple store right there. All it does is plug right in. The hole, which is covered, is perfectly acceptable and a good size to have this go right into it. Now, we use this guy right here. This is the power band. It's a phone charger, kind of a battery pack by Joby. The way that this works is it's pretty much just got an iPhone plug right there built into it, and it straps to the back of your thing. We'll be reviewing this pretty soon. But you'll notice that the cord shape and size is quite different. That plug, not the plug itself, but the plastic and material around it. I know it's hard to show with this camera, but you can probably see the difference in size, how this is much smaller than this. So what happens is when you try to plug this into this, it doesn't fit into the port down there. So I don't know if this is something that can be addressed in further models. I don't know if it's something where Lifeproof has to know about this, or these guys have to know about Lifeproof and whether they're licensing things, or maybe even Apple doesn't allow the same cord size to be built, or the technology is different, or whatever. But for whatever reason, if you've got something that doesn't fit into there, you're going to have to take the phone case off in order to properly charge it. As for the audio port right here, there may be a similar issue, especially if you have a 90-degree bend in your headphones. Once again, Apple headphones work just fine in here, but some things with a larger plug, and again, not the plug itself, but the material around the plug, the plastic that covers that jack, is maybe not going to fit so well. But Lifeproof has adapted something for us for this, and that is the inclusion of this guy right here in the box. Now, what I really like about this, number one, it's like a couple inch long little adapter, which you can see there. It's meant to extend this port so you can use whatever headphone with a 3.5mm jack you want to use in there. What's great about this is that right up here, this is threaded. So I mentioned earlier how this thing screws into here and creates a nice seal. This also, once you plug it in, screws right in, so it is sealed in there. So even if you wanted to listen to something with this in, you're not going to compromise the waterproofness of this by having that open like that. A really, really nice feature. And again, if this is a bridge too far for you, number one, really? Number two, don't get this case then. Just go a plain foam. One thing I did notice very, very seldom, like 1 or 2% of the time, was that the headphone function, if I wanted to skip to the next track or something like that, every now and then I would have to do it twice, and then it would work on the second try. There was never a time where it just didn't work, but every now and then there was kind of that lapse somehow in this connection right here where I'd go to pause the music and it wouldn't pause, or go to play the music and it wouldn't play, or change the volume and it wouldn't quite change. So I just have to do it again and it would work no problem. With regard to the protection that this provides this screen, I did not have any issues with this. Now, admittedly, I did not do a whole ton of underwater shooting because of the crack on my screen. Again, not the fault of the Lifeproof case at all. But I did do a little bit, and here's a little bit of that. I was filming baby Gearist kind of swimming around in her pool in the backyard, and it worked no problem. I have absolutely had this in some really lousy weather. I was running down the Longs Peak Trail in hail and rain rain and full on, and it held up just fine. There were no problems, and this was getting rained on and sweated on and hailed on and everything, and it was just right in the front pocket of my hydration pack. But it held up extremely well, no issues whatsoever. What I can see being a bit of a barrier for some people, and I do not blame you with this one, is that leap of faith with putting a phone with no protection on the screen aside from that sealer on the outside. I can see that being a stretch. In fact, in the case they include this little blue kind of phone mimic thing that you put in here, which is to basically test the water tightness of this, just to kind of show you, to make sure there are no flaws with your case or anything like that. And I did not notice any of those issues. In looking at some customer reviews online of some past iterations of the Lifeproof Nüüd in earlier versions of the iPhone and Android devices, some people did complain that this rubber around here falls apart after a while, but not the case. It's like the outer lying rubber, and I have to say that I don't notice anything at all. So maybe there's been an update in this, or one of the reviews I was like, this case sucks, it only lasted 2 years, and I go, what? I don't get that. But if you expect it to last more than 2 years, I mean, maybe the case lasts more than 2 years, but this rubber is going to break down a little bit. I don't get it, but whatever. Now, here's the rub with this case. As with all things that you're protecting something really valuable in that you really need, they kind of got you on this one because they're not cheap. This case right now, I think if you go to lifeproof.com, will retail you for $68. Now, do be sure to check the buy links down in the description of this video because we have found it for a little cheaper, but one thing I would again like to point out is that $68 may seem like a lot for a phone case, and I think when it originally retailed it was like $80. But consider the fact that you are, again, protecting a device that's got a ton of information on it that is basically a lifeline for many of us, and something that itself retails for probably over $600, depending on the device that you've got. And again, I want to be really, really clear here. If you have found a phone case that provides 100% audio quality, but also protects a phone like this, please tell us about it. I really want to know, because I don't see how those two things can exist in the same universe at this point. I've got to admit that I'm very impressed by the Lifeproof Nüüd. This is one of those things that I've never had a Lifeproof case before. I'd seen them. I really hesitated because in the past some of these things were quite bulky. This is very slim. It's very lightweight. It doesn't take up much space. It doesn't really compromise the fit of this thing in my pocket at all. Yes, the speaker audio does leave a little bit to be desired, but for me that's not a huge deal because again I use headphones almost all the time, and when I'm recording videos on this, which if you subscribe to this channel you see our Gearist dailies and Gearist adventures and things like that, chances are this is one of the things you're seeing the video come from. There's no distortion when recording to this, and I really love that a lot. If you're looking for a case that can really protect based on snow and rain and ice and dirt and all that kind of stuff, and you want an unobstructed screen that's really going to keep that protection, even though that first time underwater is a little bit nerve-wracking, this is certainly something to take a look at. Before we give you guys our question of the day, please don't forget to like and favorite this video. Please do that and subscribe to our channel. Share this with your friends. Anybody that is a smartphone junkie needs to protect their phone. Please share those things. All the videos you guys share mean a lot to us. They bring us more and more support, and we love that. Now, our question of the day for you guys is, what smartphone case do you use? Now, keep in mind that this case is available not just for Apple devices, so if you've got an Android device and you've got a case that you really like, let us know what you use and why. Thank you guys for spending a few minutes with us today. If you've got any questions at all, don't hesitate to email info@gearist.com or reach out to us on all the social outlets, which you can see right here on my right, your left, including please subscribe to this channel by clicking that YouTube button right down there. That would mean a lot. And as always, guys, please share our channel, just youtube.com/Gearist or /TheGearist, either one works, with all your friends who are outdoor nerds like we are. Thank you guys so much, and we will see you next time.